ZYX-Thara's 4 eyes darted nervously between her quantum tablet and the human sitting beside her. The Galactic Academy's Advanced Stellar Mechanics exam was proving more challenging than anticipated, and her neural enhancement implants were failing to retrieve the necessary calculations from the data core. The human, Sarah Chun from Earth, according to the class roster, sat motionless except for the steady scratching of her primitive writing instrument against actual paper. Paper. How did anyone expect to pass an advanced physics exam without direct neural interface to the galactic database? ZYX-Thara's anxiety mounted as she watched Sarah's hand move with confident strokes across the archaic medium. Desperate times called for desperate measures. She activated her optical zoom function and focused on the human's work. The equation Sarah was writing made no sense. Where ZYX-Thara expected to see standard quantum field calculations copied from approved textbooks, she found handwritten derivations that seemed to start from basic principles. The human appeared to be figuring things out in real time during the exam. Impossible, ZYX-Thara whispered in her native tongue, then quickly looked around to ensure Proctor Velkin hadn't noticed. She refocused her enhanced vision on Sarah's paper. The human had just derived the gravitational wave propagation formula from scratch, complete with elegant mathematical shortcuts that ZYX-Thara had never seen in any database. How was she doing this without accessing external memory banks? 30 minutes into the 3-hour exam, ZYX-Thara made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her academic career. She began copying Sarah's answers. The first few problems went smoothly. Sarah's unconventional approach yielded correct results, even if the methodology was bizarre. But as the exam progressed, ZYX-Thara noticed something troubling. Sarah would sometimes pause, stare at the ceiling with those peculiar single, pupilled eyes, make a soft humming sound, and then continue writing with renewed vigor. During one such pause, Sarah suddenly turned and caught ZYX-Thara's optical sensors focused directly on her paper. "Oh, hey," Sarah said quietly, careful not to disturb other test takers. "You're having trouble with number 12 too?" ZYX-Thara's chromatophores flushed deep purple with embarrassment. I was merely observing your technique." Sarah smiled, a facial expression that still unsettled most aliens. "Want a hint? You don't need the full tensor calculation. If you just think about what happens when space-time curves around a rotating mass." She made a gentle, swirling gesture with her hand. "It's like water flowing around a rock, but in 4 dimensions. "I don't understand," ZYX-Thara admitted. "How are you solving these without accessing the knowledge databases?" Sarah looked genuinely confused. "Databases? We're not allowed to use external resources during exams. But how do you retain all this information? Your species doesn't have neural enhancement ports or quantum memory implants. Your brain tissue is purely biological." "Yeah, I studied," Sarah replied, as if this explained everything. "I spent the last 2 weeks reviewing the material, working through practice problems, and making sure I understood the underlying concepts." ZYX-Thara's world shifted on its axis. "You memorized it?" "Not just memorized," Sarah corrected. "I learned it. There's a difference. When you understand how things work, you don't need to remember every specific formula. You could derive what you need." The revelation was staggering. ZYX-Thara's species, like most in the galaxy, had evolved beyond biological memory retention millennia ago. Why store information in fallible organic neural networks when quantum databases could hold perfect copies of all knowledge? "But what if you forget?" ZYX-Thara asked. Sarah's smile widened. "That's the beautiful thing about understanding. You can't really forget how to think." As the exam concluded, ZYX-Thara watched Sarah pack away her primitive writing tools with a mixture of awe and existential crisis. The human had outperformed students with direct neural links to the sum total of galactic knowledge, using nothing but the 3 pounds of biological matter between her ears. Later that evening, ZYX-Thara did something unprecedented. She disconnected her neural enhancements and tried to solve a simple physics problem using only her natural brain functions. It was terrifying. It was difficult. It was exhilarating. For the first time in her academic career, she was actually thinking instead of accessing. And slowly, she began to understand what the human meant about the difference between knowing and learning. The real shock came when exam results were posted. Sarah had scored highest in the class, followed surprisingly closely by Zwaxtera, whose natural problem-solving abilities, freed from dependence on external databases, had proven more capable than she'd ever imagined. Sometimes the most advanced technology was the one you carried inside your skull all along.